Hello everyone and welcome to a very late and a very low-tech set review for One Night in Karazhan. I wanted this to come out much earlier and I wanted it to look much better, but you guys deserve some videos and so here we are. We're just gonna do it like this and hopefully the next one will be better. Oh yeah, also note that I am talking from the perspective of an arena player, so don't trust anything I might say about constructed. Alright, let's go. First, we got an Enchanted Raven, a 1-mana 2/2 Druid beast. Now, we have better one drops in Zombie Chow, better stats anyway. Of course, there's no drawback to playing this late game, where your opponent might just AoE and get 3 health from the Zombie Chow. But besides that, we kind of know what to expect. I mean, if you get this guy in your deck, he can effectively replace any 2-drop. As this guy on turn 1, hero power on turn 2, will likely kill any 2-drop your opponent might make. And of course it gives you the chance of playing Enchanted Raven into a real 2-drop and going off much better. So, will I draft this? Oh, yes, but only instead of or over 2-drops. Like if I see this guy and some regular 2-drops, I'll probably value him a bit higher than the average 2-drop. But, not that exciting a card. Just there to make sure your early game curve fills out. Alright, Menagerie Warden, a 6-mana 5/5. With Battle Cry, choose a friendly beast, summon a copy of it. So now, without getting value for this guy, he's not very exciting, 6-mana 5/5 stats, but the potential value of this guy, I'm primarily thinking about something like, say, Druid of your Claw. If your opponent doesn't have an answer to it immediately, you play this guy in turn 6, you just won the game, is absolutely worth having him in your deck. Probably most of the time you're just looking to copy some 3-drop you play on the same turn, but occasionally you get a 5/7 drop or better from him and you just, in theory at least, basically end the game, unless your opponent has something even more ridiculous. So I'll be drafting this pretty highly until I learn otherwise. There's enough beast in Druid. I mean, you should at least be copying some random small beast at worst, and at best you just completely roll over the board if you're already ahead. Above average, but not exciting. Like your typical like 3.5 stars if I had to rate him out of 5. Not gonna break the game, but definitely will be very swingy. So the next one we got Moonglade Portal, a 6-mana spell. Restore 6 health and summon a 6-cost minion. Now, if we just value this out, we can see that summoning a 6-cost minion, probably 5 mana, I'd say. And restoring 6 health, probably 2 mana. So a combined value of 7 mana. Of course, it also combines the effect of 2 cards, which is another 1 or 2 points of mana, depending on your counting. So overall, you're getting pretty fantastic value. Now, the downfall of these like dual value cards, like Lay on Hands, for example, is that most of the time you only need one of the effects. And this is no different either. I mean, a lot of the time you'll be playing this guy, you don't need the healing. But it's really good, and the healing is really relevant against aggressive decks, which the arena contains quite a number of. Additionally, of course, the real value here is when you can use that restore 6 health to heal a minion. That's far more value than just healing yourself. So given that it's probably worth the value, even if you're only getting very little value for the 6 healing, like you're rarely getting completely screwed for your 6 out of a card, and a lot of the time you can use this to really cement your position on the board by pumping a lot of healing into a high health minion. I'm going to be drafting this, like I'm going to call this almost tier 1, maybe tier 1. I will definitely be drafting this as a tier 1 card until I learn otherwise. Alright, next up we got the Kindly Grandmother, such flavor. A 2-mana 1/1 beast with Death Rattle. Summon a 3/2 Big Bad Wolf, and the Big Bad Wolf is down here as a 3/2 beast, no text. Now, probably slightly on the better scale of 2-drops. I mean, it has the advantage of almost guaranteeing you a beast on the board in one of the two beasts on the board. Say, for example, if you go second, you play this on turn 2, likely you have a target for something like a Coined Houndmaster. Outside of that, I mean, again, not super exciting, not gonna break the game. Probably worth drafting reasonably, like as the upper half of 2 drops. But yeah, not gonna do a lot. Cloaked Huntress, on the other hand, is a 3 mana 3/4. Now that lands it squarely in the region of great 3 drops just on stats, which is a mana point where it's oftentimes hard to find good drops. So just on that alone, it's worth considering drafting reasonably highly. Definitely already in the better half of cards. And then it has the text, your secret costs 0, which of course in some decks will be absolutely ridiculous, and in other decks will do absolutely nothing. Now the thing is, this can definitely be drafted just on value of stats, so taking this speculatively early when you don't have secrets is great. You're not getting, you're not losing any. I mean, well, you're losing value, but you don't have a bad card if you happen to miss out on the synergy. Now, the secrets you want with this are the secrets that are strong when you have a strong early game. So the idea here is that secrets like Misdirect and Flame Trap don't work so well with this guy. You want secrets that work when you have control of the board, like Freezing Trap, and the next one here, the 2 mana Cat Trick secret, which says after your opponent casts a spell, summon a 4/2 Panda with Stealth. Now in Arena, there's not going to be that many spells. I mean, most decks will have some, but a lot of decks have less than 5, if not only 1 or 2. So this is not going to trigger that reliably, but it's going to trigger in most games. So definitely it's worth having. Keep in mind, one great thing about this, of course, is the keyword here, after your opponent casts a spell, meaning that this will come after AoE, making it a great counter against, even late in the game, against something like Mage, threatening Flame Strike, or even a Paladin with Consecration. Though, no mind, because you'll equality first and then you cry. No, but seriously, Cat Trick and Freezing Trap are going to be the two cards you're looking to combo with the Huntress. If not the 2 secrets you want, in general anyway. Of course, Snipes work well with the Huntress too. Not that I forgot it. Alright, next up we got Medivh's Valet, a 2 mana Mage card, 3/2 stats, Battle Cry. If you control a secret, deal 3 damage. Good stats for 2 mana. Of course, if you play this on curve, you're crying, because the real value here is, of course, in the Battle Cry in mid to late game if you get a secret. I mean, this is worth playing. A lot of times you'll be able to play this late game with the secret on the same turn. If you have even, like, if the secret is reasonably good value, like a Mirror Entity, this is going to be a real tempo changer on the board. I will definitely be valuing this fairly highly. Again, it has the advantage of being draftable speculatively. At worst, you get a fine 2-drop, though of course you're not very excited about it. But I'm definitely not going to go out of my way to pick bad secrets to combo with him, but I will pick this guy up and hope that I get a reasonable secret to play him with. Absolutely great swing on the board in the mid game. Alright, and lastly we got the Fireland Portal. Oh well, lastly for the mages anyway. A 7 mana spell, deal 5 damage and summon a random 5 cost minion. So alright, so let's do the math on this one. Deal 5 damage, like for mage, that's probably 3.5 mana. Summon a random 5 cost minion, 4 mana, maybe, probably. So that's combined already worth it. Of course, it's 2 cards in 1 on top of that, so probably a combined mana effect of 9.5 almost. Something ridiculous anyway. Now, of course, as we said, normally the fall down of these dual purpose cards is you don't want both the effects. Now, this is one of the best of those cards, because you do want both of the effects. You always want the damage, primarily to clear the board, but it can go face, and you always want minions. So this card is instantly maybe the best mage card in the arena. Definitely tier 1, definitely upper half, definitely top 3 maybe even. I wouldn't be surprised if this is just straight up the best card for Mage now, outside of legendaries. Definitely best common. Anyway though, moving on. Babbling Book. As I was just doing, a 1 mana, 1/1 battle cry. Add a random mage spell to your hand. Now, adding a random mage spell to your hand is worse than just putting a good mage spell in your deck. So, generally speaking, I would not take this guy over an actual good card. Now, the times to draft this guy is when the other cards look terrible. You effectively just have a chance at something random. Also, a small chance of playing this on turn 1 and having it do something meaningful, like trade into a 2/1, or help trade with your hero power, killing a 3/2. Constructed, I don't really see it, because the battle cry add a random card to your hand is just like, well, you could just put the card in your deck that you wanted. But I mean, it's fun, it's high variance, and yeah, it's there to when the other cards in the draft suck. All right, moving on to the Paladin cards. We got Nightbane Templar, a 3 mana, 2/3. Battle Cry. If you're holding a dragon, summon 2 1/1 whelps. Well, firstly, this is terrible stats for 3 mana. Certainly you're never going to want to play him without triggering the Battle Cry. Now the problem is, if you're holding a dragon, from an arena perspective, that'll happen roughly 1 game in like 10, maybe, if you're lucky, possibly. It is not gonna happen. And even when it does happen, you get 2 whelps. So you get a 2/3 and 2 1/1s for 3 mana. Is that slightly better than an average 3-drop? Probably yes, particularly because it's likely to leave you with something on the board you can buff. But clearly this is a build around me card. You need a deck that has dragons in it and cares about spawning lots of tokens. Good luck. Certainly I'm instantly ignoring this guy's existence for arena play. Alright, next up we got the Silver Moon Portal. Give a minion +2/+2 and summon a 2-cost minion for 4 mana. This effect is a lot better than it looks. Now you might say like, oh look, it's just like a new way of doing Blessing of Kings, but whereas Blessing of Kings gives you +4/+4, this gives you half the stats, and the other half of the mana cost comes from summoning a 2-cost minion. However, the thing to pay a lot of attention to here is the fact that most of the time you use Blessing of Kings, you want to use it on one of your minions so that it survives a trade with one of your opponent's minions that costs him 1 or even more cards to kill. Now the thing is, a lot of the time +4/+4 is just not necessary to do that. A lot of the time you're just a +2/+2 will make your Yeti kill his Yeti and survive, and he'll have to spend another minion or another spell on killing it, and then you get something else. So in fact, I suggest valuing this slightly above Blessing of Kings. At least I'll do so until I learn otherwise. Quite excited to play this guy, of course. Not quite excited to see him summon a Doomsayer, but, you know, life. And lastly, we got the Ivory Knight. A 6 mana, 4/4. Battle Cry. Discover a spell and restore health to your hero equal to its cost. Now, this is a very exciting card. For the stats on the curve, not really what you want to be playing, unless you're somehow out of options, but late game, and particularly against aggressive decks, this could be great for just a health infusion, discovering a big spell that you can then maybe even cast next turn. But also the fact that discover a spell is or discover anything, but discover a spell in Paladin is a very powerful effect, oftentimes going to be able to get you something that gets you out of trouble. Late game, looking for something like Equality or even Consecration can really get you out of a lot of otherwise potential losing positions, and the extra health it gives you is almost just a bonus. Like, this is almost playable without the health, and in fact in many times I suspect the health won't be relevant to you, but even without, so just the ability to discover a spell on a minion that has bad but okay stats for 6 mana. I mean, well, they're not okay stats for 6 mana, I'm not kidding, but you're effectively only paying like 2.5 mana cost to discover a spell. pretty good. And get the health. I'll take it. Next up, we got the Purify. We got Purify, a 2-mana pre-spell. Silence a friendly minion and drawing card. And this is the proverbial dead horse that everyone's been beating. I won't say too much about it. Everyone else has been talking about it. But I will say that reading a card like this, all I see is the missed opportunity. Like, if instead this card had read, silence a friendly minion, draw a card, then return this spell to your hand, it costs 1 more. Then it would have been an awesome, interesting take on card draw, sort of requiring you to silence your own minions, which many times in Priest is kind of a negative. Priest relies a lot on minions with special effects or minion buffs. Of course, sometimes like a Soul Priest, silencing it can be a helpful effect. Definitely. But, I mean, I would really love to see a class of spells that has this effect of returning to your hand for increased mana cost. I think that particularly like Mind Vision comes to mind as another spell that would be really interesting if it had that multicast mechanic. And of course you could have some kind of cap, so it would say like return this to your hand, it costs 1 more, do this up to 3 times. Anyway, all I see is the missed opportunity of actually making an awesome card. But moving on, we got the Priest of the Feast, a 4-mana 3/6. Whenever you cast a spell, restore 3 health to your hero. I mean, it's okay stats for 4 mana, but it doesn't do anything until you cast spells, and then it restores health, which half the time, if you have this guy on the board and he's alive and you're casting spells, you probably don't care about the 3 health because you're winning. And if you're not winning, then the 3 health is probably not going to change that. Most of the time, this effect is just kind of like not relevant, but it's pretty good stats for 4 mana, and particularly being a 3/6 is great setup for potentially buffs. Like your opponent will be unlikely to be able to kill this immediately when you play him on turn 4 if he only has 1 minion on the board. So a lot of the time you'll be able to either put your hero power into healing it, buffing it, and doing something. So I suspect it's going to be reasonably interesting for Priest to draft this, but the effect of healing when you cast spells is not why. Alright. Onyx Bishop, a 5-mana 3/4. Battle Cry. Summon a friendly minion that died this game. So this is terrible stats for 5 mana. I know I just called 4 mana, 4/4, 6 mana good stats. So anyway, no, terrible stats for 5 mana. Obviously the value is in the Battle Cry, but in order to get value from this Battle Cry, the problem is playing this guy on the curve, what has died? 2 drops? 3 drops? It's not really a playable card on the curve, so then you gotta wait for late game until your big minions has died and you're still alive in the game, then you gotta play him, then he's gotta actually summon a big minion to be value, and just too many things that have to line up. One of the very important arena lessons that I think I always try and impart to new players is the idea of just making sure the majority of your deck works when you play the cards on the curve and when you do not have board control. This is kind of the problem with this guy. I mean, a lot of times you can play him and he's not terrible and he summons a 2-drop or 3-drop. You're probably okay with it. But it's not exciting to have him do that. On the other hand, you can kind of think of it like, and actually I'm starting to warm up to him a little bit, but because what you can do is if you're playing on curve, you're getting reasonable stats. I mean, sometimes you might even get a 4-drop. And then you're kind of free-rolling the late game, right? Like, so you play him and he's okay without being exciting on curve, but in case the game goes late and you top deck him, suddenly you're just free-rolling the chance of getting something amazing. So in fact, I'm kind of warming up to him. Maybe he's actually worth considering in the top half of cards anyway. I'll have to play and see, but he looked bad after thinking about him for a little bit. He still looks mediocre, but the good half of mediocre. You're kind of just getting a free chance of a ridiculous card popping up. Possibly even a taunt to save your game. Who knows? I can particularly see this guy being strong if your early game is lacking. Like you say, you have very few 2-drops. I mean, imagine your first drop is a Shield Master. Then your opponent likely runs him over because he's control of the board. Then you play this, guaranteed Shield Master again. Actually pretty good stats for 5 mana and a half chance to make a reasonable shot at a comeback. Yeah, he's okay, maybe. I'll have to play and see. Alright, and here we got the Swashbuckler, a 1-mana rogue pirate, 1/1. Add a random class card from your opponent's hand. Now, as we talked about earlier, adding a random card to your hand is worse than having a good card in your deck. So it is a worse idea. You would not want to draft this guy over a good card in order to add a random card to your deck. Now, this guy being a rogue and this guy being a pirate, there's a few pirate synergy cards you care about in rogues, and a 1-mana rogue card that kind of doesn't cost you a card is a great combo enabler, particularly in the early mid game where it can be kind of hard to find a combo that works. Like if you want to combo your big 5-drop, or you just need a combo on turn 3 for your Eviscerate, well, he's your guy. And he's playable enough on turn 1 if you just want to curve out this guy, hero power. Chances are your opponent is not taking control of the board as easily. So I could definitely see this guy in the upper half of the draft making a lot of rogue decks work. Just kind of being, he's the guy that glues your deck together, if you can have him. You don't want to take him over good cards, but you're pretty happy just having him as a way to kind of fill out your curve and fill out your combos. So yeah, I'm fairly positive about him. Next up we got the Deadly Fork, a 3-mana 3/2. Add a 3/2 weapon to your hand. Now, being 3 attack is quite relevant. I see I talked quite poorly about a 3-mana 2/3, but having 3 damage, at worst you're likely being able to trade out like most 2-drops and most 3-drops, at worst with a rogue hero power, and of course you have a weapon added, a 3/2 weapon. I assume it's going to cost 2 mana, but if it costs, I mean, it's good at 3 mana. I mean, a 3/2 weapon at 3 mana is good. A 3/2 weapon at 2 mana is great, depending on the mana cost of the weapon. That might affect his value a little bit, but I'm like, I mean, I'm drafting this guy as a sort of tier 1 kind of pick until I learn otherwise. It's a pretty nice 2-card and 1 effect effectively. The weapon is like, the weapon alone is worth 1.5 cards, and this guy is definitely worth a half card, if not more. So yeah, top pick. Obviously, we lose a little bit of value if we have a lot of weapons in your deck, but a lot of the rogue weapons aren't that good in and of themselves. So absolutely liking him. All right, a Feral Peddler, a 5-mana 5/6 with the text, the battle cry, reduce the cost of cards from your other classes by 2. Now, this is great stats for 5 mana, perfect curve stats, very playable even without any cards in your hand. So you're kind of, I mean, in most arena decks won't have an opportunity to have many cards from other classes. Of course, in Constructed, this guy is sort of a build around me, certainly. But you're definitely free rolling the battle cry effect, is how I like to think about it. Like, you pick this guy, even if you don't have any way to get those cards in your hand, you're getting pretty much the best 5-drop you can. And if it triggers and gives you value, great bonus. I mean, he is upper half 5-drops just on stats, and certainly he's possibly even tier 1 if you have a chance to trigger the effect. Absolutely. I've ultimately probably more of a Constructed build a deck around me card than an arena smasher, but those 5/6 for 5 mana, those are very powerful cards in the arena, as we already have seen. And then we got the Shaman cards. A 1-mana Spirit Claws, a 1-mana 1/3 weapons, has +2 attack while you have spell damage. Now, of course, spell damage can be attained from the hero power if you're lucky. So it's worth playing. I mean, sometimes at worst you're getting 3 damage for 1 mana. That's honestly quite a reasonable value proposition of itself, and sometimes you get more, potentially up to 9 damage. Sometimes you get that bonus damage. At worst, you have to fish for it with your hero power. At best, you have a spell damage card somewhere. Ultimately, I mean, it's not like a card you want 7 copies of. I think I'm pretty happy having only 1, because a lot of times you'd just be sitting with this equipped, not attacking, looking for an opportunity to either utilize that 1 damage or end up actually having the spell power to do anything with him. But quite valuable, highly draftable, of course. Less so if you have other weapons. Like, this is a guy I value very highly if I don't have any weapons, where I can afford to have him sit equipped and not use him. If I have 4 or 5 weapons in my deck, well, then equipping this guy just kind of means I'll end up over-equipping him with another weapon before I actually have a chance to use him for value. So yeah. Let's go with now we got the Wicked Witch Doctor, a 4-mana 3/4. Whenever you cast a spell, summon a random basic totem. I assume basic in this case means hero power totem. I mean, whenever you cast a spell is a pretty easy effect to trigger in Constructed. Sometimes it's not that easy in Arena, but Shamans do have a lot of spells, and you're likely going to get at least a few, and sometimes many. Now, it's mass stats for 4 mana. I mean, the problem here, as I talked about, is like, make sure most of your cards are playable on the curve. The biggest reason cards lose value in Arena is because they suck when you play them on the curve, and they suck even more when you play them and you're behind. And this is no exception. Like, your opponent is slightly ahead on the board, and you play this guy, well, now your opponent is quite far ahead on the board, and you get even worse trades, and you're going to lose even harder. So really, I just kind of don't want this in my deck, because I can't play him on turn 4, and even when I'm getting value, I'm getting not that much value. You're looking at multiple spell triggerings before you can even just make up for the stat loss. So not super excited about him. Will avoid until I learn otherwise. Alright, and lastly, we got the 2-mana Maelstrom Portal, a 2-mana spell. Deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. Summon a random 1-cost minion. Now, Shaman's only other AoE Lightning Storm had massive overload cost and was random damage. Shaman really needed some, like, reliable way of doing AoE damage that doesn't just ruin their next turn, because the problem with Lightning Storm a lot of the time is you play it, and even if you clear the board, which you oftentimes don't do completely, now your opponent is playing more mana than you and likely taking the board right back. So Maelstrom Portal, even though it's doing less damage, it is pretty good if it gets empowered by a little bit of spell power, and it's also much better because even when it doesn't clear the board, you're not screwing up your next turn. So this can be usable just to get a good chunk of damage, wipe Divine Shields, whatever, kill that annoying guy that survived at 1 health, and then you're not screwing up your next turn. Summon a random 1-cost minion is the free bonus. I suspect I will draft this very highly on Shaman. This is certainly a potential game changer late game, just having that 1 damage. Of course, you are looking to get it empowered with spell power most of the time. But even just using it to wiping like 2 Divine Shields or killing 2 minions or making your board trades work. You have 3 minions on the board that doesn't quite make the trades. Boom, 1 damage to everything will do it. So expecting to draft this guy a lot. He is rare, but yeah, he's one of the cards that are going to help make Shaman work when you get him. And here we got the Malkazar Imp, 1 mana, 1/3. Whenever you discard a card, draw a card. Now, stats, meh. 1/3s on turn 1 are okay, but it's a demon, so you got some demon synergy, demon buffs. Definitely be worth it. I mean, you play this guy and you demon fire him, you're pretty happy. You just got a 3/5 on turn 2, absolutely worth just having him for those kind of synergies. Makes your discard spells free, but at the cost of playing him. Like, you play him late game in order to play discard spells. doesn't really matter because like you might as well just not have played him. I mean, yes, you can do it with more discard spells, but is that ever gonna be valuable? Warlocks already kind of have an easy time drawing cards. It's usually not the drawing cards is usually not the problem when you play Warlock that you're trying to solve, but it's okay stats for 1 mana. The demon, like obviously you're looking to demon synergy when you do play him on turn 1. Makes any occasional discard spells you might have in the arena potentially free. It's okay, not exciting. Helps fill out curve, meh. Now we got the 5 mana Karazhan. Summon a 5 mana spell, summon a 1/1 candle, a 2/2 broom, and a 3/3 teapot. Oh, the flavor, oh, the flavor. Anyway, though, pretty good stats for 5 mana. Not exciting stats, but okay. Like sort of middling cards. I mean, it's a spell, not a minion, that matters sometimes, though probably not too much. I don't know if any of the candle, broom, and teapots are gonna have special minion types. I suspect not. So like just kind of middling pick. I will not really be super excited about playing it, but it's fun. That's the most interesting thing about it, is that it's fun. Anyway. 3 mana, Silverware Golem. If you discard this minion, summon it. Of course, that works with the, that's a bit of a synergy with the whole discarding effect being shoved into Warlock. Want more discarding synergies. For arena purposes, discarding synergies might as well not exist. I mean, it's okay. I mean, most of the time, the problem is if you play your discard spells early, you're going to be unlikely to hit this guy. If you play your discard spells late, then you're getting a 3/3 as a bonus, unlikely to change much. Playing him on curve is pretty weak. I mean, occasionally he's okay. It's like more flavor than function, at least for arena purposes. Of course, in constructed that might be different, though I'm not entirely sure how or why. You would need... I'm not the greatest constructed player, as you might have figured out by now. Anyway, though, not excited about drafting him. Like, if I have this guy in my deck, something went horribly wrong. Is how I like to see it. And now we move into the warrior cards. So a 5 mana Fool's Bane, a 5 mana weapon, 3/4, unlimited attacks each turn, can't attack heroes. So for 5 mana, so just on pure stats, or pure value here, for 5 mana we get up to 12 damage, and we can attack up to 4 minions, which is gonna make this card very good. Just that alone. Yes, we can't hit heroes, so we can't swing face for like if we need a bit of damage, but just being able to clear up to 12 health of minions off the board, of course that very likely means that we'll be in a critical condition ourselves and won't be able to use that many other weapons to kill minions. But just that alone is going to make this card highly worthwhile. I mean, a lot of times you'll be playing this on turn 5 or in the mid-game and just simply clearing up your opponent's board, retaking control of the board. So absolutely like upper tier cards. Probably still sitting slightly below Winags, and definitely the more weapons you have, the less you want this. And likewise, if you have this, and particularly if you have 2 of these, you definitely don't want too many other weapons, because a lot of times you just won't be able to afford the health to hit minions with them. But I will be drafting this as a tier 1 card until I learn otherwise. I mean, I would even argue it might even be in the top 5 warrior cards, though that's a tough call these days. But definitely it's up there, probably slightly below Winax, just because, I mean, you do need to get to turn 5 and you can easily get so behind on the board that you can't even afford to swing with this. But when it works, it'll really work. Now we got a 5 mana spell, Ironforge Portal. Gain 4 armor and summon a 4-cost minion. So we got a whole cycle of these dual cards. Gain 4 armor is worth what? Like maybe 1 mana? Well, maybe 1.5 mana if I'm generous. And summon a 4-cost minion is maybe worth 3 mana. So like you're kind of just barely getting 5 mana worth of value, and a lot of the times, again, this is a card that has the sort of the death of the dual purpose cards, where you really don't need both effects most of the time. Like the 4 armor is only relevant if you are about to die and you need 4 armor to not die. Most games that won't matter. And in fact, spending 5 mana to play a 4-cost minion is more likely to make you need 4 armor to not die. I mean, occasionally worthwhile, and surely if you have a lot of weapons like the one up here, the Fool's Bane, surely this gains a bit of value, but ultimately it's like you need to care about it being a spell, which warriors really don't that much. So yeah, no, I'll be avoiding this guy. Alright, on the other hand, a 3 mana, Protect the King. For each enemy minion, summon a 1/1 pawn with taunt. Now here's something great. I mean, this is a similar to Unleash the Hounds. They don't have charge, they have taunt instead. You're getting, most of the time, you're getting at least 3 or 4 minions in this when you play him, which is pretty good for 3 mana, and there's 3 or 4 different taunts. So a lot of times it'll prevent you from dying to just a swing from the board. Of course, a lot of times your opponent will also just have some AoE and there they go. But this is likely to save your big minion. It's going to combo well with Cult Master. It's going to combo well with, like, if you need to buy a turn to not die, if you need to save yourself. I will want one of these in most decks, but definitely a lot of the times you'll be sitting with this in your hand waiting for an opportunity to play him. Like the second Protect the King you have in your deck or in your hand is dead. Like you'll just be sitting there waiting to play the first one. Of course, you can chain them for like multiple turns of not dying, but that's, unless you have a lot of weapons and some other way of swinging at your opponent's face, that's unlikely to really help you. But for 3 mana, you're going to get 3 or 4 pawns, and they're going to actually save valuable cards, and sometimes you play a Cult Master and you play this guy and you draw 4 cards and you win the game. I'll have first one. I'll put reasonable value on having 1, but I definitely won't be trying to get more than 1 in my deck. Alright, and then before we move to the... so let me have a break before we move to the neutral cards. I will cover those in the next video. I think this is already running almost 40 minutes, so thanks a lot for watching. I mean, give me a comment, a like, a subscribe, anything you feel like. I love debating with people. If you have any insight to add to what I said, I will definitely be eager to hear it. Alright, see you in the next one.